Let's talk about the fact that we are a hub for this commodity. But looking at our performance, according to Ecobank, the region's share of global production has fallen to 5% this year. Now, Cote d'Ivoire is a significant exporter, but looking at Nigeria, one of the largest producers, but what we produce, sorry about that, the rest of the countries in the region actually import 60%, including Nigeria, who's one of the largest producers. Now, what is Cote d'Ivoire doing right, and what are the rest of the countries in the region doing wrong?
Well, part of the problem with Nigeria is the size of the population and the amount of palm oil consumed. Palm oil is very much part of the West African culture. It's not just used for food, it's used for cooking, heating and fuel. And so in Nigeria, you have a very large population. And maybe 40 years ago, Nigeria was one of the largest producers, but the production hasn't kept up with that. The reason Cote d'Ivoire is able to export to the region is because its population is smaller and it actually has very developed plantations there. On average, only around 5 to 6% of plantations in West Africa are industrial. The vast majority are smallholder farmers using wild plantations. Also, we have the fact that Cote d'Ivoire is really focused on being a soft commodities exporter for many years. But this is changing, and we are seeing heavy investment in Nigeria's agricultural sector, and obviously palm oil is one of the sectors they're focusing on.
Right, and just refocusing on Cote d'Ivoire, I mean, palm oil exports to the region have almost tripled in the last 4 years. Now, is the country on the way to overtaking Nigeria as a major producer of palm oil in the region? Of course, joining some of those world leaders in palm oil production, such as Malaysia and, of course, Indonesia.
Well, I think it's a long way from joining Indonesia and Malaysia. I mean, between them, they produce over 80% of the world's palm oil. I mean, most of the country is dedicated to the production of palm oil. But of course, Cote d'Ivoire is a very varied soft commodity producer. It's the largest producer of cocoa, but it's also the second largest in Africa of cashews. And there's also large production as well of palm oil. And I think really the issue is going to be going forward whether the Cote d'Ivoire government can find sufficient land and is able to produce sufficiently to really boost exports to the region, because of course domestic consumption is rising in Cote d'Ivoire as well.
And like you said earlier, George, I mean, there's sort of a shift in attention. Some of those large multinationals are now paying more attention to Africa and the West African region when it comes to palm oil production. What does this mean for the development of the commodity in the region? I mean, like I said earlier, 5%, our global production has fallen to 5% this year.
Well, I think what's more important than the actual percentage of global production is the deficit. There's about a 3.5 million ton deficit every year in West Africa for palm oil. So we're seeing major investment. And the good thing is we're seeing investment by new companies. There's Chinese companies, there's American companies. For example, Cargill, which is the largest soft commodities trader and processor, is investing in a 50,000 hectare plantation in Cote d'Ivoire. And just earlier this year, Ecobank was the lead arranger for Olam, which is investing in Gabon, a 50,000 hectare plantation. Once that is fully up to capacity, it could possibly overtake Cote d'Ivoire as an exporter to the region. So I think overall the important thing is that we could see West Africa increasingly supplying more of its own needs. But whether it can actually export palm oil outside West Africa, I think there's going to have to be a massive increase in production for that to happen.